slowly, slowly. Hi everyone, here I am again after a while. I want to clarify that I won't make YouTube videos often. I'll do it when I have something to say or something to share. But I have my job, which takes more than 100% of my time. I have a family, I have my hobbies besides sim racing, so I really have very little time. I also have very little time to drive. In fact, I'm not a sim racer who plays online often. I like to play off and offline on my own as well, or join online practice sessions, but just stick to that. I don't really feel like competing with other people at 52. I've calmed down a bit, you know? But I'd like to tell you a bit about how I went from 2022 to 26. From having almost nothing to creating a setup like this. Why? Because many of you asked, especially my English-speaking friends asked how much I spent and if there are any plans or drawings, right? Unfortunately, the answer is no, because I started in 2022, then I kept expanding my setup until I reached what I have today, but I didn't make any drawings. So it's also hard to say what I spent because I added the parts little by little, right? I think it's right to start like this, step by step, because it's useless to start by spending a lot and then realize it's not what you want. Anyway, I'm ashamed to say it, but I started sim racing in 2022. I'm 52, but I started in 2022, so 4 years ago at 48. I started thanks to my son. And why? I want to, let's say, go back to the past, first of all to my childhood to explain it all. At 8 years old, from 8 to 20, I spent most of my childhood on circuits all over Europe because my father, actually my stepfather, raced cars. He did almost 30 years of Formula 3 at an amateur level. And so I would go every other weekend to a different circuit. It could be Mugello, Monza, Dijon, Hockenheim. I've really been everywhere, right? And this was from 8 to 20 years old. But personally, even though I loved driving, it was really something I liked a lot. I didn't have the chance to drive. I drove some racing go-karts for sure, competitively. I took some track courses with my car because my stepfather, besides being a driver, was also an instructor, so I had that luck. Then personally, I could never race for a few reasons. My stepfather is only 15 years older than me, or I think 14 years older than me, and as a result, when I was 8, he was 22, and he was focused on his hobby. What little money we had, he spent on himself to go car racing. He didn't have the time or the financial means to let me race too. So he was focused on himself. And that's only fair. So he would race and I followed him, I helped him. I spent a wonderful childhood at racetracks all over Europe. It was a great time. But I still had my hobbies. I played soccer, volleyball, I did fitness, and so I never really entered the world of motor racing, even though I followed it. And I also followed Formula 1 until '94, then with Senna's death. Unfortunately, I then drifted away from Formula 1, but you see, you have to understand, I grew up in an era, the 80s and 90s, even in Group B rally, I mean a beautiful era for cars. Cars truly for men with real guts. It was really beautiful. But I still left this world behind a bit, and in 2022 by chance, I wanted my son to be able to play on the computer, right? And so I bought him Forza Horizon 5, but I said to myself, I have to let him play with a steering wheel. And I tell you, I'm ashamed to say it, I knew nothing about the world of sim racing. I had no idea that such a world existed. Really, I didn't know. I didn't know anything about steering wheels, direct drive, belt-driven wheels. I really knew nothing about it. So for my son, I bought a Logitech G29. Because since I'm in Switzerland, I'm Swiss and Logitech, you just get a Logitech, the G29. I attached it to the desk in the living room to a screen. I had a 27-inch PC monitor because I used to play on PC anyway. I played Far Cry a bit. I played them all from 1 to 6, and so I had a screen, I had a good PC, quite powerful. And so I set up the wheel at the desk, and I had the pedals resting on a cardboard box. Plastic, a nice sturdy plastic box. I just rested them there and let him play. But then I started playing too. I started playing with my gaming chair. I started playing and I was amazed. I said, wow, there are so many sensations you feel at the wheel, even with a G29 and playing a Simcade. So I started researching a bit on YouTube and the internet, and I discovered a world of true simulation games like iRacing and Assetto Corsa Competizione. A world I didn't know existed opened up to me. And I'm a bit ashamed to say it, but that's just how it is, right? And so, little by little, this passion for sim racing was born, and I've gradually evolved my setup. I've always added something more. In fact, now I'll show you throughout the video the various steps I took from 2022 to 2026 and how I came to build a completely enclosed cockpit. I took many small steps until I reached, let's say, the final result. I think and hope this is the finish line for me. Anyway, I started in 2022, as you saw on the previous video, with a G29 at the desk, a small 27-inch screen, pedals resting on a plastic box, and my son playing on a chair, the kind used for tables, those children's chairs, you know? There, and if you keep watching the video, I'll show you the various steps I took, and I'll explain a little bit as we go, what I added and what I did differently. So keep watching the video, stay tuned, and I'll see you in a bit as I continue to explain the various steps. Bye bye. Here we are again. You've just seen the second clip of the video, which still concerned the year 2022, and the modifications I had made were really limited. I had only changed my son's seat. I took the car seat I had for him and put it on the gaming chair so he would be more comfortable. And it also looked a bit nicer. Meanwhile, the pedals, instead of resting on the plastic box, I built a pedestal using some wooden planks, so that everything would be a bit more stable and look a bit better aesthetically. As you can see, my son's wearing a helmet, but it's the one he uses for biking on the pump track. Yeah? Yeah, I included that video because it was nice to see. It was a bit funny, but usually he normally plays without the helmet. It's just a video he made like that many years ago, and it was cute to watch. That's why I put it in. But well, he was just starting out with the steering wheel. I think it was also a bit funny, which is why I included it. Anyway, come on, let me show you the third clip, which is about 2023. That was the year I took the first big step, with some major changes. Go ahead, watch it if you're interested, and I'll see you again later. Bye bye. This turn is very difficult, it's very narrow, right? Yes, and if you were there in real life, Well, you've just seen a short sequence from 2023, which was the year I took, let's say, several steps forward. Let's say I still stayed in the living room at the desk, but I made some rather important modifications that I'll list for you. So the first thing I did, I changed the screen. I got a 49-inch screen, curved with a radius of 1800, which was attached to an Ergotron arm. Ergotron produces computer arms of a truly high level. It's a patented arm, by the way, that holds up to 19 kilograms. It's an arm that allowed me to move the monitor forward and backward and also sideways. And so for me it was very, very convenient, because when I wasn't playing, I'd move the monitor back and have the desk free. While when I played, I would pull the monitor forward and place it right on top of the rig. This was the first big step forward that I took. Second, which I'm proud of, I built a half rig. Why half? Because I had no room in the living room, so I built a half rig that when I played, I would take it from the other, on the side of the living room where I would usually put it. I would bring it over to the desk, and then I would lean the rig carefully against the desk. So the wheel always stayed right in front of the desk, while the pedals would end up tucked away under the desk. And the rig I built was made of aluminum profiles, very strong, very stable. It was resting on small wheels that I could still lock with brakes. So really very, very stable. And the gaming seat I had when I played, I'd connect it to the rig with straps that I pulled very, very tight. And so it was all quite stable. This was a big change that I made. I also got the Simagic base, the Alpha 15 Newton meters. I added a button box on the left. I bought the Handbrake, which was a cheap Chinese one on AliExpress for 50 euros, which worked fine anyway. And I got a Heusinkveld sequential shifter, the one I still have, which I really find to be of a very high level, and it gives me great feedback. I also changed the pedals for myself. Specifically, I got some Alien load cell ones, which I really like. As for my son, I left his pedals as they were, since he is comfortable with them. The Logitech one. So when my son played, he'd place his pedal set in front of mine, and it was very stable. And so these are the steps I took in that year. Then later in that same year, I built a dashboard, also in fake carbon fiber, which was very nice to look at. Which, by the way, I then replicated on my new rig. I didn't make it exactly the same, but I made it similar. So this is a bit of what I did in 2023. Now I'll show you another short clip regarding 2024, where I made some small additions, but not that small. Watch the video, and then I'll explain the changes I made and what I added new in 2024. See you later. Bye-bye. Hi guys, here we are again. Did you see that clip from 2024? A year where I made some major changes anyway. Why? In 2024, I built the second part of the rig, the missing piece. So that when I played, I'd take the front part and the back part and I could join them together. I could fasten them with 4 screws. It was a very quick process. Anyway, I kept playing at the desk, and when I finished playing, I'd take the 2 parts apart and move them separately to a corner of the living room where it wouldn't be in the way. So what did I do in 2024? I bought a seat. This one I still have today. A second-hand bargain racing seat that I purchased from a real racing car. It's been with me ever since. It was no longer certified for racing, and I was lucky enough to get it for about 90 euros. It wasn't new, but it was still in good condition. I'm still using it today, and I think it's still a great seat, comfortable and nice and rigid. Because for real racing cars, the seats are rigid. They're not like the ones you often buy for sim racing. These are truly very robust seats. What else did I do? Then, later in 2024, I built a side fairing that really gave me that great immersion of being in a Formula car. Back then I was mostly racing in Formula 3 and Formula 4, so I had the idea to build this fairing for myself. And as you saw in the video, it enclosed me like a cockpit and gave me a really great sense of immersion. So that's pretty much what I did in 2024. And I also removed the handbrake because I didn't need it. Those were the steps for 2024. So I was still in the living room at the desk, but I simply completed the rig after that. Good. There's not much more to say about 2024. Let's take the next step and move on to 2025. Let's say early 2025. Well, I made some significant changes and I'll show you in the next clip. So if you're interested, check it out and I'll see you later. Hi everyone, I hope you watched that short clip from 2025, which for me was the year I really took another step forward. Because as you've noticed, I finally moved the setup from the living room and put it in another room. I found a little spot in a corner in another small room where I can retreat and be quiet. And for me this has really been a great step forward. Another thing that I did, I created a fairing. Besides the side one I already had, I also created it in the front part of my setup so that even my legs and feet were enclosed inside as if they were inside a cockpit. And this, in my opinion, has greatly increased the game immersion. The monitor stayed the same. I simply built a nice stable stand using aluminum profiles. And I added 2 Bassshakers, one in the front and one in the back. Which, by the way, Bassshakers, I recommend them to everyone. If you want to spend a little, around 200 euros, and greatly increase the immersion, nothing beats Bassshakers. I really recommend them to everyone. Do it if you want, do it. Well, this was the beginning of 2025, but a short time later, I added a roof. Why? Because I kind of stopped playing with formulas and played a bit more with GT3 and GT2. And consequently, I wanted to have the feeling of having a roof over me. I mean, the side fairing stayed the same, the front stayed the same, I just added a roof. You can see what I did from the images in the previous video. So, as you can see, it was still open on the sides, meaning there were no walls enclosing it, but I had gone ahead and closed it on top by adding a roof, which provided some shelter from above. So, this is exactly what I did in the year 2025, making sure to cover the top while leaving the sides open. Now, let's move on to the next and final step in this process, which takes place in the following year, 2026. Let's say, late 2025, early 2026. Because for a few months I couldn't play. Because what did I do? I completely took the setup apart. I took apart everything I had. And I rebuilt it using almost all the same parts. To be clear, some I didn't add, I bought new ones. I built the new setup for 2026, which I finished recently. See you later. Well guys, we've reached the end of the video. I hope I haven't bored you. And in this final segment, I'll tell you what I did between the end of 2025 and 2026. At the end of 2025, I completely dismantled the setup I had. And in 3 or 4 months, I built this one. A completely enclosed setup, as you can see. Recycling a significant portion of the material that I had already used for the old setup, of course, was the approach I took. I had to add some aluminum profiles. I had to add some PVC panels. And I bought the fans mainly for ventilation, just to help with the airflow. I sold a 49-inch screen and I got 3 27-inch ones, curved. And lastly, I bought the Handbrake, this one from Simagic, which I bought exclusively to play Assetto Corsa Rally. Because I love Assetto Corsa Rally, it's a game I like way too much. For the rest, again, I didn't buy anything. So the question many have asked me, well, what did I spend on this? Well, it's not easy to answer. I have to split the cost over 4 years. And I've always added new elements, so I've never done a precise calculation. I estimate, all things considered, it would be about 10,000 euros more or less. Which is a lot, of course. It's not a little, but I could have spent even more. I could have made something nicer if I hadn't recycled what I already had and bought material new. But I'm really happy with my final result because, okay, maybe someone might say it sucks, but the immersion inside the cockpit, from my point of view, is fantastic. But I want to conclude by saying one thing. It's true, 10,000 euros is not a little, but I'm 52 years old. And I can afford it. In my life, I've always worked hard, I still work hard, and for my wife and son, I don't let them go without anything. And if I do the math, if all goes well, I still have 20 or 25 good years of my life. If I stay healthy as I am now. Time flies by quickly, guys. Time is racing. We have to enjoy life if we have the chance to do so. And I, at 52 years old, I wanted to spoil myself just a little bit, so I decided to invest my money in this project. Anyway, I want to end the video by saying goodbye. Hoping to see you all very soon. Even if, as I said before, I won't make a video anytime soon, because I really don't have the time. But when I have something to say, or to share with you, I'll be back again. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you soon, I hope. A big greeting, and take care of yourselves. Bye guys.